Hi, this is Sensei James Leonelli from Sensei's Weekly Mindset, and I'm here to talk to you about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball, soccer, and esports. Don't forget my personal favorite, MMA. We've got it all on betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, we can help you find those on BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. And don't forget BetOnline for NHL, boxing, golf, and like I said, my personal favorite, the sport of MMA. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Life isn't always easy, and you don't have to face it alone. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you have access to a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of needs. To get started, you simply answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live sessions when it's most convenient for you. The best part is, if your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and at a more affordable price, all from the comfort at home. To start your journey and to get 10% off of your first month, go to betterhelp.com/sensei. That's better, HELP.com/sensei. BetterHelp, you deserve to be happy. Hi guys, Sensei James Leonelli here to talk to you about another one of our sponsors, LMNT. An electrolyte drink mix. Each one of these little packets gives you exactly what you need to keep you as hydrated as all us athletes like to be. If you're like me, you work out a lot, and when you work out a lot, you also sweat a lot. Now, when we sweat, we don't lose just water, of course. We also sweat out salt. We sweat out electrolytes. So each one of these packets contains 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, giving you everything that you need in order to maintain optimal hydration and nothing that you don't. So to go online, place an order for your sample pack, and to get yourself a bonus free sample pack, you're going to go to this website right here, elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. You're going to see this down in the video below, but I'll say it one more time for you. elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. Again, it's a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing that you don't. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Sensei's Weekly Mindset. I'm Sensei James Leonelli, owner and head instructor of Tiger Schulman's here in Smithtown. Once again, I am back in my home recording space. I am ready to give you guys this week's food for thought. You can see I'm wearing a little bit of the 40th anniversary collection available on tigear.com. This is one of my favorite shirts. It's got that awesome picture of Tiger Schulman and Shion Schulman on the back when they were youngsters in the very beginning of the Tiger Schulman's brand. But awesome collection. Check it out. There's a whole bunch of stuff there, not to mention all the other great collections that are there available on tigear.com. So as we sit here today, we're just days removed from Flex Fights 41, the final Flex Fight show of 2024. And, we banged out 11 shows this year, which is crazy for a regional MMA brand, right? I don't know of any other brand that has done as many shows as Flex Fights. It's a ton of fights that were put on, and we did, we did a fantastic job, if I do say so myself. But nonetheless, as we entered this show, brand new venue for us, the All Sportsplex the All Island Sportsplex in Deer Park, New York, right by the Deer Park train station, conveniently right by Flex headquarters. So it did make for a convenient place to go. Parking not the greatest at the venue for sure, but more than that, we had some technical difficulties that day for sure. The actual venue itself was good. It was an indoor soccer venue essentially. So the cage had plenty of room around it. We had plenty of room to do what we were going to do. Plenty of room to pack fans in and such. The awkward part, technical wise, was the locker rooms. The locker rooms had to be in like a storage room off of the main room, which is fine. But there was only two good ways to get people from there to where they needed to walk. And the reality was we either needed to walk them through the crowd and like through all the vendors and through everything and then bring them all the way to the other side of the venue where they were going to take their walk from, or we had to walk them through a little outside area in order to get them to another door, which would have been fine with the weather we had been having here in New York. If it was 60-something degrees, no big deal. Well, Friday decided to be 39 degrees instead. So, of course, that was not the most pleasant way, but it worked. The Wi-Fi situation was not great in the arena for us as staff. But again, we did what we had to do there. Not that big of a problem. And some other technical issues, which we'll get to throughout the card. But good card overall. We started with a novice amateur MMA fight, which went off fairly without a hitch. It was one interesting thing that happened in this fight and in the next fight. The ring announcer, read the guys in, and then we stood there for a while. And I'm not exactly sure why. It's just one of those things where it just there's no real rhyme or reason as to why it happened that way. Like we didn't get a great description in the broadcast booth as to, hey guys, this is why this is happening. But that's okay. We had to kill some time. Nothing we couldn't handle. But they eventually make the walk. George Tavares from Long Island MMA and Kwame Kwake. Competitive fight for the first round for sure. It definitely seemed like George had the advantage when they locked up, and he used that advantage in round two to get himself a rear naked choke, a Darce choke victory, which my commentary partner D-Rock was very excited about because he's a Darce guy just like me. So moving on. Right, as we looked into the next fight, another MMA fight, this one in the advanced rule set, which is nice. These guys can strike the head on the ground. We had Georgi Kantrashvili. Georgie's a character. He's very intense, very all business. He kind of subscribes to the Sean O'Malley mentally undefeated. He always lists his record as something in O, though he does have a loss from TKO via injury. He was unable to see in one of his fights, and therefore the other fighter won. So because the fight got stopped for that reason, but he doesn't even count that fight, which is kind of funny. Georgian, very tough guy, very good wrestler. Fighting, it was very much the classic striker versus grappler fight, as we had Lawrence Wing, who's a very accomplished kickboxer, very good kickboxer, fighting Georgie. Now, Lawrence had some good wrestling in his background, so we were interested to see how this fight was going to go. Georgie got the takedown, and Lawrence did a good job of containing him for a while, and then he got in the no-no zone with the guard. You either have to be all the way in or all the way out in the guard in MMA, and he was in that middle zone, and with that, Georgie landed some vicious ground and pound, knocked Lawrence out. It was really a thing of beauty for Georgie. Great finish for him. So hopefully a real nice step in the right direction for him. Next, we had Jake Marino facing Quintarius Fisher. Justin. There's two Marinos that fight in Flex. I do that constantly, even though I don't do it on mic and broadcast. Just in my head, I flip up names. I know who's who. Just names do it. So we have a Justin Marino and a Jake Marino. So we had Justin Marino fighting, and Justin, a real inspiring guy, right? Survived testicular cancer to get where he got. Used that as motivation to finally get into martial arts, get himself into better shape. He's done that great. They call him Muscles Marinara around the gym. Very likable guy, and he's just kind of gotten, I don't want to say gotten caught because that takes something away from his opponents, but he's just come out on the wrong side of some crazy scrambles in the past couple of fights where he's now an 0-2 MMA fighter So he's like, you know what? Let me take a step back. Let me reduce some variables. Let me do some kickboxing. Did some kickboxing, looked good, made some really nice adjustments, won a unanimous decision. Real good. And again, really happy for him because he's just a nice guy. Then we had Eddie St. Bernard returning to the MMA fight scene for us, fighting Christian Gomez. This is another good fight. Christian, a tough guy. You could see the skill difference on the ground, though. Eddie, a purple belt, and like a good purple belt at that. And he was making real nice transitions, moving from position to position to position really, really nicely. And then eventually he was able to find his way to the back, and he made a prediction of a rear naked choke, and the prediction came through before the end of round 3. He finished with a rear naked choke. Then we moved on into our next fight, CJ Brucky. This fight was a fun one. CJ just an absolute character. He's dancing and he's vibing and built like an Adonis. This dude is jacked. Looked like a He-Man action figure from the 80s. And just seemed to be really, really in good nature. And then we had Alondre Woodfield, who's had a couple of fights for us. Never really came out on the right side of them, but he was here, game, ready to fight. And again, this was a big test for him because CJ not only physically big, but he was a state champion wrestler, a national qualifier, a U.S. Open an Open All-American. So you know the guy can get his hands on you and get to the ground. So CJ, he also told us he made music with his buddy and walked out to that music. So just again, a guy I wish I had more time to talk to. He was a really, really, really nice guy and a very interesting character for sure. So he makes his way to the cage, as does Alondre, and then Reed goes to read them in. He gets like, lady, he gets about there, and the microphone just crackles out. And I said it on broadcast. I'll say it again. I love Reed, a ring announcer. He's a great young man, right? Open-minded, always asking for feedback, always vibes off of us because he can hear us in his earpiece. So when we're pumping him up, he gets even more pumped up. He's a great kid. But young man. No offense, Reed. I'm much older than you. Anyway, moving along. So as the mic cuts out, instantly you just see Reed's face just, oh. I said in the broadcast, I'm like, Reed, I love you. Never play poker because you got no poker face. And he had a good laugh at that. So they were trying to get the mic issue resolved for a good little while, 5 minutes or so, which is an eternity when you're standing in the cage staring at the person you're going to fight. That's a long, long, long time. Nonetheless, Reed takes it upon himself and just says, you know what? I'm just going to yell these guys in. So it's exactly what he does. Top is like, ladies and gentlemen. And it went off without a hitch. CJ gets in, gets his man down, quickly gets to his back. As soon as he does, flattens him out, gets sort of a rear naked choke, doesn't really feel like he had it closed. Alondre submits to him. CJ got up looking aggravated. He was not happy with that situation. I think he would have rather had a definitive finish than something where he felt like he didn't really have the chance to finish it. But either way, I look forward to seeing him back and hopefully without technical difficulties this time. Next, we had Disco Danny Fox and Ricardo Angeles. Ricardo took the fight on a day's notice, which is crazy, right? Taking an MMA fight on a day's notice. And Danny's crowd, the tickets that he sold were right behind us. Interesting fight. Danny, decorated jiu-jitsu player, and you could see it. He threw some really nice jiu-jitsu stuff up. Really nice submission, especially in the first round. And then by the second round, he started to gas himself out a little bit, or the nerves got to him. Really hard to tell which one. But you could see the moment, he was having a hard time conditioning-wise. Then add to that, his opponent didn't speak great English and was not aware of the rule set, apparently, that you couldn't strike to the head on the ground. Struck to the head on the ground enough that a point was taken from him. So now that rules, I kind of gave the first round to Danny because of all the attacks, but then kind of gassed out by the end of round 1. The next round, I thought Richard was winning, and Richard got the point taken away, so now we have an even round, and I felt like the third round, Rich won. So in my mind, we had a draw. And then the cards get read, and you could have convinced me easily that, hey, Danny didn't win enough of the first round, and we actually think Rich won that. You could have convinced me, and I wouldn't have been upset with you. I still think it was a draw, but it would have been an easy thing. They read the cards that Danny won, and I was like, I don't know about that. And even Reed kind of looks at them like, guys, are you sure? They go back, they get the corner of it. It's like, there's no way. They go back, and it turns out that the point deduction had not been properly applied. They bring him back in. It's ruled a majority draw. This is where the night got a little interesting. Not that it hadn't been interesting to this point already, but the crowd of Danny Fox behind us starts to go a little nuts, and they're like flipping off the other corner, and they're talking all this junk, and they're being really aggressive about it. And Danny walks over. He goes, guys, what are you doing? Why are you acting like that? Cut it out. Don't act like that. And I was so impressed. Like, sometimes fighters can get caught up in the moment, and Danny did not. And the fact that he took the moment to really address with his crowd what he felt was appropriate and what he felt was not, man, it was a really nice thing to see. So very impressed by Disco Danny Fox's character, even more than his martial arts. Not that his martial arts wasn't impressive, but the character, that really stood out to me. Next, we had Douglas Davis versus Malcolm Schuyler. I did not get to hear Malcolm say his last name, so I'm just going to, it looks like Schuyler to me, but I could be convinced it's Schuyler. Either way, Malcolm, known online as Winged C, he fights on Street Beefs all the time, which I don't recommend, but he does. And coming off of a viral 5-second knockout where he literally just ran across the cage, threw a right hand, knocked the guy unconscious. It was crazy. He is a character. Definitely a character. Came out with big sparkly wings on, dancing the way of the ring. Just, really an animated character for sure. And then he lived up to the hype. Good wrestling, good jiu-jitsu. Took Douglas down again and again and again. Eventually, round 2, secures an armbar and gets his win, which is spectacular. And always nice when a guy is a character and kind of lives up to it as well. So I'm sure we'll see him back. I hope to have more conversations with him because, again, definitely a character, definitely some skills. We'll see how far he can go. Our next fight, unfortunately, got scrapped. We're supposed to have Mike Romano making his return to the cage. I like to watch Mike Romano fight. He's a vicious guy, got murderer's eyes. I like to watch him perform. And he had a returning vet in Todd McCarver coming in as well to take the fight. Todd was on one of my first flex cards and hasn't fought since because of a shoulder injury. But I was looking forward to that. Todd fell ill in the background, and there we were. So moving on, we had Phil Wallen versus Tyler Sample. Tyler, a talent we had not seen before. I see he's from Florida. Phil, great wrestling, great ground control as far as skills go. And he really was using that stuff well, just telegraphing a little bit. And Tyler was able to get out of some things that I haven't seen a lot of people get out. Phil just got a little takedown happy, and I felt like he was committing to them from the wrong distances and not hiding them well enough and so forth. And, if he had done that a little better, it would have been even more definitive, but Phil did win a majority decision. Now here's where things start to get even more interesting because now we had 2 big delays in our first fights where the fighter gets read in and then we're just standing there waiting like, what's going on? So that's going on. And then additionally, a lot of fights going to decision and so forth. So we had big delays. Probably, I'd imagine we went on at 5:15. I don't believe we finished the first 2 fights till 6, which is crazy. Like that fights never take that long. So now we have our last fight of the preliminary portion of the card, which is supposed to be on Throwdown Sports, and we have a hard on at 8 o'clock for Fubo Sports. So now we're like, okay, listen, I hope one of these guys gets to finish and makes it easy. Well, they didn't, unfortunately, but 2 very skilled guys, 2 very experienced guys as amateurs, Saul Vivas and Eric Gonzalez, both veterans of the Flex Cage. I've called a bunch of both of their fights, 2 very skilled guys. It was very much, even though Saul has shown some crafty jiu-jitsu, this very much read like a striker versus grappler kind of fight, and the grappler held true. Eric was able to get takedowns in every single round, very experienced. Saul's got 8 fights, but Gonzalez not only has, this was the 9th fight for Saul and the 12th fight for Eric. So not a tremendous experience in the cage difference, but tremendous training difference. Eric had been training for a long time. He's a brown belt BJJ, and it really shined through. His jiu-jitsu looked very, very good. But then now it got to the point where like, okay, the fight's over. they're reading the decision. They are putting the belt on Eric. They are doing all this stuff while the intro video is playing on Fubo and all the audio is cut. So that way none of this is coming through on air. They cut through to us while the guys are taking their pictures in the cage. We had to kill time for a little bit longer than we were anticipating. And then we had our lone pro MMA fight of the evening. Ryan Jarina and Eli Guzman both making their return to the Flex cage, both veterans. Ryan made his pro debut with us. Eli, a lot of amateur fights, but no pro with us. Both coming off a loss in their pro fights, in their pro debuts, and a real grinding fight. Now here's where things got technically interesting again. They walked the guys out, there's spotlights in the ring, and then the spotlights had been kicking off, and the room lights have been kicking on. Well, that didn't happen. So for the whole first round, these guys are just fighting in spotlights, so half the cage is dark, or darker than it had been. That was really odd. But the guys made do, a very grinding style fight. Ryan very busy in the clinch, hitting some really nice elbows and knees, was able to take a split decision in that one. Next, we had Cole Barnard making a return as a professional to us. He was supposed to have an MMA fight. His opponent fell ill during weigh-ins, during making weight rather, wasn't able to make the weight, fell, hurt himself. It was a whole to-do. They got a late replacement to do a kickboxing fight against him. Cole finished him by knockout in round one. It was a thing of beauty. Beautiful overhand right. And then we continued on our FUBA portion of the card. We had Gian Yanoa versus Manny Romero. Again, a good fight, two good guys, very tough. But the pace was not something that Manny came out, and they came out just going crazy. And really, it seemed like Gian really started to turn on in the clinch, landing a bunch of knees and real good body work there. And he just peppered away at that energy bar and forces a TKO end of round 3. So Manny did not answer the bell for round 4. Gian wins the amateur title. We moved on to an amateur MMA fight. We had Devin Heffernan, who had two amateur MMA fights with us against Alex Grippo. Alex had not fought with us before, but again, very good. And it was a very interesting fight. Alex, a much shorter athlete, but he was so explosive. He got in on Devin again and again and again and took this guy for some frequent flyer miles. And man, oh man, eventually one of the takedowns turns into Alex flattening Devin out, secures the rear naked choke finish in round 2. Another title fight, we had Luke Hart versus Mario De Los Santos. This fight was a real tough fight to score. Gritty performance from both guys. Hart seemed to be having a little bit of trouble with Mario's reach. And Mario, though Mario may not have been the more active athlete, from where we were sitting, it very much seemed like Mario was the more accurate athlete. Like he was landing more out of his maybe lesser output than Luke was from his greater output. Mario walks away with the split decision win. Some people called it controversial. I felt it was right, but I'm only one person. Moving on. Stanley Stanatis makes his return to the Flex cage after quite a long layoff. He got married in that time and stuff, so not like he was just screwing around, just good life stuff. And he fought Corey Ghostface Powell, made his return to the Flex cage as well. And you could see right away the grappling prowess of Corey Powell. He took Stanley down. And earlier in the broadcast, we've been talking about using shots to the body on the ground, knees to the body, punches from the right angles and so forth. And Corey used a couple of devastating knees to the body. They changed the whole fight, in my opinion. And that fight went Corey's way, TKO round 1. Then a really nice Muay Thai style battle that I kind of felt these guys should have fought Muay Thai rules instead of kickboxing rules. Giovanni Papora, Nico Malo, very nice display of Muay Thai. Tough fight to score in my estimation. Giovanni walked away with a split decision win. Then an awesome fight, a rematch 5 years in the making. Gustavo Granados versus Yaya Arona. Yaya had fought for us previously this year, 2 straight back-to-back, one card after the other fights, where he won both fights by slam knockout. He fought a combined 36 seconds in both fights. So now his first fight ever had been many years earlier against Gus Granados. And Gus had been busy since then. Kickboxing fights, MMA fights, coming off of a real grinding win back in September. And this was a tough one for sure because, you know that Yaya's got that tool in his back pocket. So you really can't let him get a good hold of you. And he got a good hold of Gus a couple of times, took him down, but never the big impactful slam that he was looking for. And when they scrambled back to the feet late round 1, Gus hit him with a left hand, and it was a big left hand. And Yaya was never quite the same after that. He was able to get his hands on Gus and able to get him to the ground a couple more times, but never had that same ferocity that of takedown that he was looking for. And then he got caught in both the second round and the third round with some big punches. The third round, the punches were enough to take him out. Eventually, Gus drops him with a left hook and then a right, and that was all she wrote. Beautiful knockout for Gus Granados. We move forward. We had Muhammad Wara versus Matt Cora in an amateur MMA fight. This fight wasn't originally meant to make TV, but we just ran so quickly through that portion of the card that we were able to. Muhammad comes out, wastes no time, gets Matt Cora to the ground, pounds him out, leaves the referee no choice but to stop the fight. TKO at round 1. Definitely did not get paid by the hour. Moving on, we had Frank Menjivar versus Gabriel Thomas in a kickboxing bout. This is a real nice technical fight. Though Gabriel Thomas, a little bit busier of an athlete, landed some really good stuff. I just felt like he used his range a little bit better, and wins unanimous decision, Gabriel Thomas. Our final pro kickboxing fight of the night, Shedrick Goodridge. I felt bad for Shedrick because he went through 4 opponent changes. And finally, Dan Bunyan shows up. And Dan, not the most decorated athlete for sure. But Dan is one of those guys who will fight anybody, anytime, no matter the notice. So he took the fight on less than 2 weeks' notice. And, he was going to try to go out there and give it his all. But Shedrick, much more experienced, and that showed. Shedrick landed a beautiful left hand early in the fight, led to a standing 8 count, and then another left hand, which led to Keith Peterson stopping the fight. Dan didn't argue. Shedrick looked a little disappointed, but again, 4 opponent changes. This is what you get, unfortunately. And then we finished out one more amateur kickboxing fight. Chamba, I'm not going to try to say Chamba's last name, versus Alex Arceo. Alex kept pushing the fight on. Come on. But he was coming up on the wrong side of that again and again. But nonetheless, Chamba comes out with a unanimous decision win and a great piece of fighting. And just a great night of fights. But it was one of those things where Keith Peterson said to somebody earlier in the night, I got a funny feeling about tonight's card. And it very much became the Murphy's Law kind of card, where everything that could go wrong did. And yet still, despite the fact that everything that could have gone wrong, internet problems, lighting problems, speaker problems, microphone problems, delays in the back, venue problems. Despite all of those things, the fight still went on, and we still had a great night of fights, and I'm sure on Fubo it still looked fantastic. And that's the thing. Even though Murphy's Law says that everything that can go wrong will, doesn't mean the show doesn't go on. And the show went on, and it went on well. So that's all I have for you guys this week. As always, guys, make sure you guys have hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube. Like, subscribe, get your new episodes every Wednesday. Make sure that you guys leave a rating and review. Just helps. And, of course, guys, share the podcast. It's the only form of advertising that I have. As always, reach me via email, senseileonelli@gmail.com, Twitter and Instagram, @sensei_Leonelli, Facebook, I'm Sensei James Leonelli. Find my school online, tsmasmithtown.com. You can go to facebook.com/Tiger Schulman Smithtown, Twitter and Instagram @TSMMA_Smithtown. Find out more about the Tiger Schulman's organization as a whole at tsk.com. You can find the podcast on Instagram @Sensei's Weekly Mindset. Like I said, guys, make sure you guys leave that rate and review. I'm thankful for all of you guys who listen. Hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Until next time, invest in yourselves. I'll see you guys on the mat.